Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to talk a little bit about protein. Might go all over the place here, but here we go. First off, why is protein so important? Well, it's important because it helps us to build lean muscle and to support recovery. And to lose fat, we need to build lean muscle tissue. Without building lean muscle tissue, we will not lose fat. We might lose weight, but it will normally never be fat. Not how we would like to. Okay? A problem that I always had all the years that I've been in this career, this is what I've always heard. When you talk about building lean muscle, women freak out. They don't want to get bulky. Here's the deal. You will never in a million years get bulky. All right? It's literally impossible. And it's even more impossible the older we get. And I've also heard things like, well, I build muscle easily and I get bulky. These were told to me by individuals in their 50s and 60s and even 70s who remember a time when they were in their 20s. And even in their 20s, they would never build as much muscle as a man would. You'll never get that bulky. But now, if you're 50, 60, 70, it is literally impossible. Keep that in mind because you need to build muscle to lose fat. And you need protein to build muscle. Okay, so here's some things. We want a palm size of protein, including thickness. Now, for those of you who like numbers, a palm, depending on the individual, because your palm will probably not be as big as mine, but a palm-sized portion comes out to about 3 to 4 ounces of protein. Could be any type of meat, could be tofu, okay? Now, there is some protein sources that get a little tricky, and that's what this video is really about. Let's look at eggs. Eggs are hard to do with a palm. So here's your general guideline. 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs, equals about a palm. Roughly 4 egg whites will also equal a palm. That being said, these are approximations. And you need to let your palm, your hand, be the guide. Put the amount of eggs you cooked on a plate, look at your palm, and if it's too much, take some off. Simple as that. Here's another thing. Let's look at cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. Kind of hard to do with the palm, right? Well, in reality, those two, you need to do by your fist, just like vegetables. And for those who want numbers, depending on your palm size, but a good approximation, a fist is a cup. Okay? So that's how you would do that. Now let's look at protein powder. 1 scoop of protein powder equals a palm serving. Okay? 2 scoops of protein powder is 2 palms. In this case, we're actually going by about 20 grams as being a palm-sized portion, which turns out about right with 3 ounces. Okay? So you take a look at that, and now you have an idea of how to measure these harder to measure sizes by using your hands. Okay, so you also got to look at different types of foods. So all foods are a combination of protein, carbs, fats, and you can even throw veggies in there. But in the way we're doing things in this program, The macronutrient that the food has the most of, macronutrients are your protein, your fat, and carb. The one that your food has the most of is what it counts as. Some of you, we've talked about things like beans and legumes, okay? I'm sorry, beans and lentils, legumes and lentils, okay? And a serving of beans will turn out to be approximately 20 to 24 grams, give or take, of carbs, with roughly only 8 grams of protein. So if you look at that, that's a carb source. If you are a meat eater, you count beans as a carb source. That being said, if you are vegan, you can count beans as a protein source because they have both carbs and protein. Now here's something for the vegans out there. Let's say you eat beans and rice, or 2 servings of beans. And when I say beans and rice, that combination is a serving of beans and a serving of rice put together. Well, when you do it that way, your 2 servings of beans, you count one as your protein source and the other as your carb source. Well, the calories are going to get way out there. Now, if you eat beans and rice, you count your beans as your protein source, but the serving of rice as your carb source. You see how that goes there? That being said, the beans you count as a protein source will only turn out to be roughly 8 grams of protein. When we look at a palm-sized serving of meat or tofu, we're looking at anywhere, depending on your hand size, 20 to 30, not quite 30 all the time, 20 to 25 grams of protein. Now that serving of beans, which equals only 8 grams respectively, you see how that falls short of what we want a protein portion to be in a meal. So you need to make that up somewhere else. But you're not going to make it up with the second serving of beans or the serving of rice, because that's a carb source. Now it's in there technically with the beans because you're going to get 16, but it's still not how we look at this. Can you get away with it? I don't know. Only true results, measurable results like strength, tone, body tone, things like that. Body tone's not quite measurable, but at least it'll give you some kind of guesstimation. But you need measurable results, okay? Now, we can do that with body fat and see if things change. If you use the scales that measure muscle percentage, they're not really accurate at all, but at least it gives you a baseline. And we need these measurable things to really know if it's working. It's easier just to eat the palm of protein, because those weights get really tricky, needs a lot of work. Some of you have asked about the 1.6 grams of protein. It's really 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that is correct. We're not going by the 0.8 grams of protein to kilogram of body weight as the USDA does. That's really for a sedentary person. Some of you, without even putting the weights in, do hours of cardio in a week and stress. You need more of that. So I'll give you a little breakdown. I got my notes here. 165-pound individual. You divide that by 2.2, which is a kilogram. You get 75. Now I'm only going to do it by the 1.6 grams. You multiply that 75 by 1.6, and you come out with 120 grams of protein that you need in a day. Now, in my other fat loss programs, it was always run at 120 grams of protein per day, no matter what the body weight was, because that would ensure you get enough protein to support muscle growth and recovery. Some of you might think that's too much. Now, if you have a medical condition that all your doctors say you shouldn't have, now we're talking something different. But if you don't, this is truly the amount of protein you need. Not only for those two reasons, building muscle and recovery, but more important, to be satisfied between meals. You see, when we cut carbs or fat, because we're going on a low fat or low carb diet, let's just stick with low carbs. We cut carbs. We need to replace that with something. We can't just cut out carbs and lower our calories down to nothing, to below 1200, because we'll break down muscle tissue. Okay? So we need to replace that carbs with something like protein and fat, or fat, to remain satisfied. If we just cut carbs and the calories go down, we don't replace it with protein or fat, now we're going to suffer cravings. Now we're going to be hungry all the time. Now we're going to want to eat things, and what our body will usually crave is carbs. So now we go on this vicious cycle that leads us nowhere. So I hope you can see how, if we cut out carbs, we need to raise our protein a little bit so we can stay satisfied. And that's a good possibility for any of you who are craving or feel hungry all the time. You haven't eaten enough protein. Then we can look at you haven't eaten enough fat. Okay? Everything needs to be balanced. You can't just cut something out and not replace it with something. It doesn't work. Okay? All right. Now, let's see. Is there any... Oh, here's a big one. For all of you who may... And I say it like that because I deal with a lot of people who like numbers. One of the reasons why counting calories, protein, carbs, and fats, why they don't work, is because what you see on a nutrition label is plus or minus 25%. It is off by 25%. It is not exact science what's on the label. It's a guesstimation, an estimation. So much factors are involved in the calorie density or nutrient density of a food, like, was it frozen? Is it fresh? Is it organic or not? What was the condition of the soil it was grown in? What type of year, what time of year was it grown in? How is it harvested? There's even more factors than that. But all these factors come into play in how much nutrients that food has, how much calories that food has. If you go with animals, what was the condition of the mother? What was the mother's feed, and how did it support milk production? Was that animal taken away at birth and fed milk by humans, like formula? It's the same thing for humans now. Okay, I'll go on a little rant here. When kids are fed formula, they don't develop as well as when they're fed breast milk. So all of you who are mothers and know that, it should be second nature to know if an animal didn't get the right nutrients from its mother, its nutrient value is not going to be good. So you can't just go by nutrient labels. That's why we're not going by numbers. Okay? Numbers are a really harsh, inaccurate way. And I hope by now you guys see that. Now, if you have any other questions about numbers, any other questions about protein, fats, or anything, please, on the Facebook site, leave those questions so that I may make some videos that may answer these questions. I want to help you guys out, make as much videos as possible. Hopefully not as long as this one, but protein is a very touchy subject, and I needed to hit it hard. And I didn't even scratch the surface, okay? So please, leave me questions, ideas, so I can make videos for you guys. All right? Okay, guys? Thank you. Bye.